Hey, Sean McElroy here with our Autoline exclusives. Joining me today is John Waraniak. Those of the initiated will recognize John. We've had him on our programs before, but for those that don't know you, John, who are you and what do you do?
I am John Waraniak, the Vice President, Chief Technology Officer of SEMA, Specialty Equipment Market Association. Basically, all the stuff you don't necessarily need for your car, but everything you want.
Right. So, in your job description, VP of Vehicle Technology, what do you do?
Mostly, it's keeping on top of all the technology trends. Certainly vehicles are getting so complex that you really do need to understand what your parts and accessories do to a vehicle to keep it in what we'll call functional compliance. Maybe it's not a regulatory compliance yet for some of the safety features or vehicle emissions features, but keeping the car operating the way it was intended to, the way it was built by the automakers themselves.
Yeah, so I think most people for SEMA know the show in Las Vegas every year. You get glitzed up cars, whether it's slammed to the ground or lifted, over top my head or whatever it may be. But now with the new technology that's coming into cars, especially ADAS, advanced driver assistance systems, that's having a big impact, especially on the aftermarket world. What sort of things are you seeing there?
Oh, tremendous. Wheels and tires, certainly lift kits, uh, body accessories, metal grills, bumpers, fascias, all that stuff that we'll talk about. All those could have an impact on the ADAS performance that's on the most popular vehicles that SEMA members are modifying. So we want to make sure that I'll call basically the vehicles are customized with confidence. That way the vehicles are put back into compliance, the ADAS sensors are calibrated, the vehicle operates functionally the way it was intended to, customers happy, SEMA manufacturers happy, and certainly the automakers are happy because they're selling more vehicles.
Yeah, definitely. It's an issue that we're seeing crop up more, especially in terms of repair or aftermarket. We actually did an Autoline this week that focused solely on the repair side of ADAS technology. And, we learned something as simple as a four-wheel alignment could throw the ADAS calibration out of whack, and you might have to go and have it recalibrated again. So it's definitely something that is at the forefront in the repair and aftermarket industry.
Absolutely. We've got a great company, SEMA company, Hunter Engineering, does the alignment. So when you do a wheel alignment or let's say just, one of the 40% of the folks accessorize vehicles, particularly trucks and SUVs with different size wheels and tires. So when you put those wheels and tires on the vehicle, they need to be realigned, and the ADAS steering sensor needs to be recalibrated. So it needs to be put on the rack, go through the sensors, look for what we call the DTCs, the diagnostic trouble codes that are generated from that change, that different wheel and tire modification, and then put it back in compliance, and then you're good to go. And Hunter, companies like Aztec, Jake Rodenroth, Opus IVS we're working with, are all part of that SEMA constellation of companies that we are actually learning very, very much and very quickly the best practices for ADAS sensor calibration. And there's another great resource there, ICAR, the Inter-Industry Conference, where we're actually teaming up with them and collaborating with them to give SEMA members access to the ADAS sensor calibration information provided by the automakers themselves.
Yeah, and ICAR also has something on their website where even consumers can go up and look where shops are that are certified to do these repairs. So there's a lot of great resources. And you were telling me you've got an online forum that's coming up that SEMA is doing that's going to be looking right into this sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Here we are on June 2nd, and coming out on June 18th will be one of our very first SEMA virtual events. We're calling it the SEMA Detroit ADAS Forum and Vehicle Review. So this is more than just a webinar. This will be totally virtual. We'll have 20 speakers from across the country, from San Diego to Dallas to Detroit, and we'll be focusing on our traditional ADAS forum with 10 or so speakers. But we will also review 4 really cool and very popular vehicles: a 2019 Ram, 2020 GMC Sierra, Nissan Titan, and a Jeep Wrangler, to demonstrate to our members when you make these modifications and accessorizations on these vehicles, what do you need to be aware of for the ADAS sensors that are on board those vehicles to put it back into compliance. So we'll be going through all of that with our members. It's going to be pretty exciting. 2.5 hour live event. We're calling it basically Live Across America, ADAS Forum, Vehicle Review.
So will all those vehicles that you just mentioned be modified and have the ADAS systems on them as well?
Absolutely. These are
Oh, cool.
full-blown ADAS systems. And, some of the ADAS systems today are standard equipment, like the Nissan Titan. This is actually the first full dynamic, active, and passive safety testing we've done. So it's one thing to calibrate the sensors. Let's say it's the front camera after you've lifted it on a 6-inch lift kit, in this case with Fox Factory. So we worked with Nissan and Fox to actually go through the sensors, recalibrate them with Aztec. But we went a step further. We teamed up with the Transportation Research Center, Proving Ground in East Liberty, Ohio, and we actually did the pedestrian automatic emergency braking test. So it's the first dynamic test to prove out that these aftermarket modifications can actually still be very compliant with in the truck, in this case, the Nissan Titan. And the good thing there is what's in it for the automaker. It demonstrates the robustness of their ADAS systems, that the system performed very well. On a scale from 1 to 5, that truck actually ended up with a score of 4.2, which is pretty good.
Yeah, definitely pretty good. Now, I wonder, are these aftermarket companies, I can understand, like, say you're doing some sort of engine modification, they could just send the vehicle out. Maybe they even have their own dyno to see how the performance is. But are with these ADAS systems, these technology systems, are they having to team up with automakers more than they did before to do the test to make sure that everything is still in compliance? Or are they able to do these on their own?
It definitely takes collaboration. And a lot of it is in what we'll call the service research organizations within the automakers. The upfitting groups, certainly the performance groups, because a lot of the times when you enhance the performance of the vehicle, whether it's at the factory or whether it's through the aftermarket, a lot of the sensors do have to be calibrated to accommodate those changes, lift height, wheel and tire accommodations. We're finding out, for example, a lot of the wraps and the cool paints, a lot of the really cool colors that SEMA members put on vehicles, you put in a couple of deep coats of primer, some really cool metallics, some clear coat, candy colors. You have to be very wary of the buildup of paint over those ultrasonic sensors. And certainly if there's a radar or if there's a camera, that aperture, if you will, or that line of sight has to be clear. So we want to make sure that all those are back in calibration. So working with the service providers and the service research at the OEMs, we're able to gain access to that information and develop a set of best practices and guidelines for the aftermarket that we're learning from the collision repair industry.
I got to tell you, that's super interesting to me that even painting a car these days is changing just based off the technology.
And you think about something simple. I know your dad's a mountain bike rider. You put a bike rack on the back of your vehicle. Well, you probably, because 2018 FMVSS, you have to have a backup camera by law on the back of the vehicle. Well, you put your bike rack on there, it's right in front of the camera. So a lot of the bike racks actually extend that capability of that camera, or have a built-in camera, or it's a cargo rack or whatever it may be, where you put a different spare tire, larger tire, to relocate the camera, things like simple things. Some are mechanical solutions, some are relocation solutions, some are actually software solutions to actually put a different aftermarket provided backup camera behind that bike rack. So cool stuff. And certainly bumpers, wheel replacement, running boards, lane departure warning. Certainly a lot of these sensors are embedded in the back of the rear view mirror in the cockpit. So if you change the vehicle height, you have to put that line of sight back in and make sure the vehicle knows where it is, so that what they call TTC, that time to collision, is back into what the sensors are syncing and what they're talking. And you've got so many millions of lines of code on a vehicle today. All that has to be talking in real time to one another and correcting and making sure that the vehicle is doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, it's just super interesting to see how everything is changing with the technology. And, kind of with that in mind, changing of times in this current environment that we live in, obviously safety and cleanliness are going to be big things that customers are going to start keying in on now. Do you see like any sort of technology coming along? Like I'm thinking along the lines of interior technologies that might disinfect. Do you see some of those starting to come into the aftermarket because of this whole environment that we've gone through now?
Oh, I think so. Certainly some of the lighting techniques, a cool factor, if you will, to make your vehicle germ-free. That could become a cool factor. But it could be some of the lights that kill the microbes and some of those other things like that, viruses. It certainly could be the touch surfaces themselves that actually heal themselves and actually have built-in germicides and things like that, or things that you can apply that could last for a month. I've seen some sprays that some of the automakers are using in their offices that will keep a door handle free of viruses for weeks, if not months. So I'm sure you'll see quite a bit of that transcending into vehicles as well. Could be a dealer application, just like you go in to get, like a diamond coat on your paint. It could be some sort of diamond coat for your interior to make sure that it's virus-free.
Yeah, it's just something that, I kind of personally felt we'll see kind of a lot more come into the aftermarket space.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And I think a lot of the technology will be changing because certainly, cars are works of art, access, power, fashion, fun, and there's always going to be that cool factor. So it's one thing to be the fastest, and SEMA's always been that, but it's another thing to be the coolest. So a lot of these cool factors will come out, and certainly a lot of things happening with even with the great race, the 500 Indianapolis Motor Speedway, getting postponed till August. The India Autonomous Challenge is moving to that same time frame too. And the cool thing is, it's all still about the driver, but it's about the technology. With a lot of these STEM and STEAM students that are entering the automotive industry, that's what keeps them excited. Folks like your age, they want to know what's happening with the vehicle. But again, the driver, certainly there's always going to be the Sunday car. There's always going to be the hobbyist. People ask me, well, why, John, you're with SEMA. Why would you be so excited about autonomous racing and autonomous cars? Because there's no denying that the car will be safer. 40,000 lives are lost in the U.S. alone every year due to car deaths. So we can help that. We can make driving safer. And kind of like some of the folks would say, what's your best race? The next one. Well, what's your best ride? Your best drive? The next one. We want to help ensure that for all drivers of all ages. And I think that's what the India Autonomous Challenge will actually do. It's solving the extreme edge cases that the automakers are facing. Certain things that are pretty easy to do on a proving ground, but as you come up to those extreme edge cases, that's what racing is all about. That transcendence of what we learn on the track and applying that to vehicles on the highway, vehicles in your driveway.
Yeah, there's nothing like testing out any type of product, any type of solution in an extreme environment like racing to really see its limits. And, pushing those limits has got to be what the race is all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's like Doug Bowles, president of the Speedway, would say, sure, the driver's going to be in the vehicles. And when they do get out of the vehicles, it's about enhancing what the vehicle can do. Typically, the vehicle is not the I'll call it the weak link in the chain. It's the driver and the driver behavior, particularly distracted driving. So if the vehicle can take over, transparent to the driver, and save your life or prevent a collision, that's something that's valuable to everybody.
Yeah, and the other thing that it does too, you mentioned all the students that it brings in and the type of reaction that you get from them, the positive reaction. And I've said it in a number of these videos, and I'm going to kind of hammer it home again here, is that there's a shortage of good talent in this industry, and we need more of it. And anything that can attract them to this industry is, in my book, a good thing. So the India Autonomous Challenge is definitely one of those things.
Oh, yeah. The advanced driver assist systems, the sensors that are on board a vehicle, there's, a typical vehicle has 100 million lines of software code. Compare that to a, Boeing 777, which has 2 to 5 million lines of software code. It's that autonomous advanced driving assist challenge that these engineers are gravitating to. And it's not just engineers, it's K through 12 schools, it's community college, it's everybody that wants to be part of that future. They get excited by that technology. And this technology is probably the most disruptive we'll ever see in our lifetimes. Autonomous cars are the most complex technology ever implemented by the automaker industry. And to have students gravitate towards the auto industry with those types of talents and skills, that is all about sustainability of this great industry.
So when will people be able to check out the India Autonomous Challenge? Were you saying August?
Yeah, they're actually some of them what we're calling the workshops with the advisors. There's actually, we launched it at the SEMA Show last November and then really drove it home at the PRI Show, which is another SEMA show we have in Indianapolis in December. And we had a great session there with the head of Dallara, Stefano De Ponte, Doug Bowles, president of the Speedway. And so we actually went through the overall India Autonomous Challenge, and we needed 15 schools, universities around the world to sign up. Today, proud to report, 37 universities have already signed up with teams for the Indy Autonomous Challenge. Now you put that in this COVID-19 and pandemic environment, that actually tells you where the industry is going, and it's going to be benefactors to all the SEMA companies, all the automakers, and all those kids that want to get into the auto industry.
Well, there you go. You can check out autonomous racing in August. That's going to be awesome. And then the ADAS forum in Detroit here, that webinar that you guys have going on. Well, you said it's more than a webinar, but we'll call it a webinar for right now. Is on June 18th. And if you go to the SEMA website, there's an events tab right at the top. You can click on there. You should be able to find it no problem. So you can always check that out too, because I think that's going to be a really cool event that there's going to be a lot of great information for people to hear about.
Absolutely. There's a great quote from Chip Ganassi, and he actually said this when he was the guest speaker at the PRI show a couple years ago. He says, we have to keep technology at the forefront. That's what excites this industry. That's what moves this industry forward. It moves and makes new markets. And Chip understands that very well with his racing career, his racing teams. We need to keep racing sustainable. We need to keep it relevant. It's things like the Indy Autonomous Challenge that will help us do that.
I couldn't have said it better myself, John. So we're just going to end it with that. Thank you for joining me today.
It was a pleasure, Sean.